as you know, How Languages Are Learned was really a very general description of language learning and research on language learning and its relationship to second and foreign language teaching. So it's a very general, a very broad book in its content. And some of our colleagues at Oxford University Press thought it might be a good idea to come up with a series of books that focused on more specific topic areas that were, some, not all, were covered in How Languages Are Learned, but deserve to have greater coverage in and of themselves. And so the idea was to prepare books that were, again, for teachers, making research accessible to teachers, but in very specific topic areas. So for example, focus on content-based language teaching, focus on oral interaction, assessment are 3 examples here of the books that we have and others in the series. The other thing was that How Languages Are Learned, we really didn't make a distinction in How Languages Are Learned between older or younger learners. The research coverage in How Languages Are Learned was very broad, whereas this series is a series that is specifically targeted for school-age learners, for primary school learners, and for secondary school learners. Okay, so this is a complicated question and a very controversial question as well, because the common assumption that is out there is that the earlier the better. And most of the research that supports this assumption comes from naturalistic second language learning. So children who are learning a second language outside of the classroom context. So they've moved to a foreign country, they're immersed in the target language, they've gone there with their mums and dads, and within a few months the children are speaking the second language almost like native speaking children, and their parents are still struggling to even accomplish the simplest errand in the L2, in the foreign language. So certainly the evidence to support earlier is best is pretty convincing for learning a second language or a foreign language in the naturalistic setting. Things change in terms of the research evidence when we move to the classroom setting and we talk about age and what's the best age to start learning a second or foreign language in the classroom, in the formal instructional environment. And in this case, most of the research actually suggests the opposite, that older learners are more efficient second language learners in the school setting than younger learners. And it's not surprising that they are, of course, because older learners bring with them a whole bunch of equipment that younger learners don't have. They're more cognitively mature, they have more highly developed analytic abilities, and they have metalinguistic skills that they've developed from their first language that they can use successfully to learn the second language or the foreign language. So they have skills that are school skills. They're the kinds of skills that enable you to do very well in a formal environment, in an instructional environment. And therefore, they learn languages, they're more successful second language learners in the school context. And what's been observed in the research that has been done comparing early starters and younger starters in the school context is that the older learners have an advantage. And over time, even though the younger learners catch up with the older learners, and right now I'm talking about, I should define older learners. Older learners may be between 11 and 13 compared to younger learners 7 or 8 years old. The older learners start out and do well and are successful learners. Certainly in the initial phases of learning, it's been observed that the younger learners eventually catch up to the older learners on some aspects of their ability, but they do not surpass them. The older learners in a school setting continue to be the ones that are benefiting more from learning in that environment. So I'm convinced by the available research evidence that exists that older is better in the school setting, but there's a very important caveat that one needs to add to that, which is that the amount of instruction that's provided to learners pretty much stays the same, so that if you decide to move English as a foreign language instruction down from, let's say, I don't know, grade 7 to grade 5, but you continue to give learners the same amount of time, which is typically 40 minutes a day or maybe an hour a day, that moving it down is not going to make any difference in terms of their linguistic development. If, however, you move it down earlier and you substantially increase the amount of input that learners have available, then we may end up with advantages for younger learners in the school setting, because then we're approximating an environment that's more like the naturalistic environment for younger learners, and that, the argument is, will enable learners to tap into their implicit learning mechanisms, their experiential learning, in ways that might advantage them. But that's an empirical question. We don't have research evidence to show that. The evidence that exists right now, however, shows that older is actually an advantage in the school environment, and therefore I would not support, and have said in many contexts, that it's better to keep it where it is for 11 and 12-year-olds, and if you want a little bit more benefits in terms of the linguistic benefits, you might actually concentrate that instruction or intensify that instruction in ways that might help older learners even progress further in their language development. The other thing I should say is that there are other advantages to introducing a language early in a child's development. They're not linguistic, according to the research evidence that exists, but they're important. So there is research evidence to show, for example, that younger learners develop more positive attitudes toward other languages and other cultures. Learners who are introduced to a foreign or second language earlier in life are more motivated and more open to learning other languages. And these are important benefits that come with early language learning. But they're not linguistic benefits. They're not benefits that are enabling younger learners to do better than older learners when learning a second or foreign language in the formal environment, in the school classroom. Well, that's a difficult question too, isn't it? Because of course, one of the things that we want our learners to get is lots of exposure, as much exposure as they possibly can to the target language when they're in this classroom. However, that's not always easy. It's not always feasible when you're in a foreign language context, particularly if there's increasing pressure to move English language instruction down earlier in the school curriculum, to have enough teachers who have the kind of competence in English to be able to provide an environment in which they're getting adequate exposure to the target language. But there are ways of working around this. I mean, one of the ways of working around it, for example, is for teachers to supplement their classes with more input-based and comprehension-based learning opportunities, so that they increase the reading opportunities that students have. So there's a larger number of books in the classroom, books that are written at a level that are appropriate to the student's age and to their interests. They have books that have been written in ways that they are sensitive to their particular linguistic abilities, so the books are written in a way that are appropriate for their particular English language abilities. You can get, nowadays, there's all kinds of material available through the oral mode as well, lots of listening comprehension materials that can be available. Often books for children come with an audio component, right? So children read and listen simultaneously, and that reinforces both of those modalities reinforce their learning. They're reading it, they're seeing the word on the page, and they're also hearing it. And they're hearing it by a competent, highly proficient, or native speaker of the language, and they're reading a book in English. And the teacher, it takes the pressure off the teacher in terms of the teacher's linguistic abilities in English, and yet at the same time, the learners are getting lots and lots of exposure to target-like input through comprehension-based learning. So this is a strategy that has been adopted in a number of different foreign language situations that help to take some of the pressure off teachers who are concerned about their linguistic abilities, and yet at the same time want to be able to provide their learners with sufficient input in the target language.